Yeah, that would be a huge bummer if this whole thing just didn't record. But hey, at least I'll learn a lot.
Yeah, we'll have a couple beers and enjoy it. So.
And some beers, yeah. So I just want to start off. Nelson, thank you so much for coming in today. You came in all the way from Oshawa. Means a lot for you to join us here today. This is the first time I've done one of these podcasts kind of in person.
Okay.
So it's cool that we're doing it over some beers in Brass Pub.
We're at the Brass Pub.
We're in Brass Pub.
And it's an excellent Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah. Lucas just finished an exam. So
my pleasure. Anytime, I can hang out with Lucas a little bit, who will probably over the next hour talk a little bit about our friendship and connection over the last number of years. And again, thanks for having me on this. And we'll just chat and see where it goes, right?
I'm in for it. So first thing I wanted to kind of start with is I want to get an idea of what was going on for you at our age. So you're around 21. Were you in university? We can even backtrack before then. What was your childhood like?
Yeah, because we could be here for hours. And Lucas knows this story through our dealings the last couple of years. I wasn't a great student, but I had a hell of a good party one night at the house, and I got kicked out when I was in grade 11. And my parents were separated. I lived with my dad in Oshawa, and when I got kicked out, I moved in with a buddy of mine, Mike White's family. So I was in grade 11, finished up high school, but didn't really have the foundation to go to university. So I went to Sir Stanford Fleming up in Peterborough to college for a semester, and my brother had gone the Boys and Girls Club. He went and did like sports administration and recreational leadership. And so I thought maybe, United Way, go that direction. And did about a semester in Peterborough, same kind of thing. I was at the bars more than I was at school. And so I was a Christmas graduate and got out of there. And all through high school, you buy the $500 Chevette, $1,800 in insurance, and you deliver pizzas. So 4 or 5 days a week I'd be delivering pizzas and kind of messing around. And I was kind of lost a little bit. You're 18, 19, 20 years old. You don't know what you're going to do. And you go to a wedding and someone would say, so what are you doing now? So I deliver pizzas. And there's nothing against that, but it was like I got the look the odd time from the people. Oh, okay. So then went back again and took business at Durham College in Oshawa. Christmas graduate again. I wasn't built for school. And so I had an opportunity with the guy that owned the Square Boy Pizza at Town Line in King and Oshawa, Nick Turkeseel. He said, there's this little opportunity to buy a little pizza restaurant. And I've always talked to Lucas about somebody has to give you that little start, and then what you do with it is up to you.
Yeah.
And so Nick lent me $18,000 at a nice 12% interest. And hey, listen, nobody else is going to lend me 18 grand when you're 21 years old and you're delivering pizzas. So I took it as fast as I could with a good buddy of mine, Alex Papagiorgio. We started Alla Pizza together. Nothing beats an Alla Pizza. And did that for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, learning the craft, just learning food costs and labor and, the attention to detail and the customer experience, how important it is to how you answer the phone, how to greet people as soon as they come through the door and manage your costs. And, rent was $700, so it wasn't like I was in a fancy downtown, Toronto place that was paying 15 grand a month rent. So I had a lot of leeway to screw up and played town league hockey in that community of Newcastle, Ontario, and just got to got to know the gang and spent time, owned the mile around my restaurant. So everybody in that community knew who I was. So at that time, I had no vision of opening a second pizza restaurant. Just run that one, pay the bills. And my brother had gone through some hard times in the late '80s. Interest rates went through the roof, and so his mortgage went from being $600 a month to $1,800 a month, whatever that was. So I jumped in and helped him out. So now I got this damn house I'm a part of, and so now I'm delivering pizzas, making them, doing everything here just to try to survive. And so it's tough times. Like every kid at 21 years old, you're focusing. I just didn't focus on university. It wasn't my thing. But right in the beginning there, I met a crazy character named John Styriadis, who Lucas knows as well.
Tell him the John story. Tell him the
It's a good story. So myself, I was probably like 21, 22 years old, and my business partner Alex was about the same. And the girls all from the local area would come in and get pizzas.
So they owned the pizza shop at this time in Newcastle.
Yeah, so we owned it, and the girls would come in and chat us up a little bit. So this guy flies up in front of our pizza place, parks on the curb in his Jeep, and comes flying out into the pizza place. He goes, "Which one of you guys is hitting on my sister?" This guy, Alex knew Taekwondo, so I thought he'd have a better chance of fighting this guy. And then he just, oh no, I'm Johnny Steriatis, how are you? I own Ace Submarine up on the 115. I own a sub shop. And so we were just kind of instant friends. It's one of those situations. You can't help but love John. He's a character. Lucas has met him, of course, over at his place. And you get about maybe one word in, and that is, hey, how are you? I'm Lucas. And then he talks the whole time. When we opened up
Pretty good time, yeah. You gotta learn a lot during it.
Oh, he's a character. I remember when we opened up in Japan, Toshi says, it's hard to catch on to how
Toshi was his Japanese franchise.
Yeah, our Japanese master franchisee. Yeah. He goes, John speaks like a machine gun, and that is John. John just he'll talk for hours and hours and hours. But so we met John. He had Ace Submarine. We had the pizza place. Played a little hockey together. Got to know the guy, and we'd always go into Toronto and you go to the Danforth and you get some really good Greek food. But you have a guy with a cigarette in his mouth, and big chest hair, shaving euro off, yelling at you in Greek, calling you something. But the food was so damn good, and it's 2 a.m. and you're coming out of a bar and you're having that amazing Mediterranean food. And so you get great falafel and hummus and, baba ganoush and all the different gyro and souvlaki and just, as you guys know, you live in Toronto. The food, hey James, you can get whatever you want. It's amazing. And so, we just kind of backstep a few years. Alex, my original business partner, was getting married to his high school sweetheart, Donna. And she goes, you got to go to a real job. You can't just continue to hang out at this pizza restaurant with your best friend and not make any money. And so he took off, and I kind of let him out of that loan, and I kept paying back to Nick Turkeseel and Johnny. So John and I said, well, why don't we partner up? He had his family, he had his older brothers and sisters, and it was a family business. He kind of wanted to do something on his own. And I was like, I was pretty flexible at the time. I had a $50 car. And,
how old are you now? 22?
Yeah, probably 22, 23 years old. And so we're kind of hanging out and still going into the city. And then, it was more his idea, because we go into, there's been pita shops all over the place for years. But no one ever really thought about franchising it until we did in '95. And so we looked at Guelph first. So it's kind of like Kingston or Guelph. And so we took a trip down there, didn't find anything where we wanted to be on Macdonell. Came to Princess Street. We're walking up and down the street and met up with the Springer family, which are predominant family here in town.
It's Springer Market Square, and all the buildings are all Springer owned.
Yeah, those boys they own half the city. So we met with them, and they showed us a little space up here and thank God they did, because we might have been on the wrong side of the tracks, so to speak. If you're down that way and you're on the other side of the hub, everyone comes out of the hub and goes back into the student ghetto, into the university. And so it's a little tougher for those bars to make it, or those restaurants. They tend to, suffer in that little lull where the McDonald's was. And so they showed us this space, and, it was a little hole in the wall, 398 square feet, and rent was about $700. And you'd have people walk by, and there's this guy named Leo. I think I told you about Leo. Leo was like a 70-year-old guy.
The Zamaster. Is it? No,
yeah, no, that was Sal was the guy that owns Zamaster. But there's this older guy named Leo that would walk by, and he'd say, "You're gonna fail." And like Johnny and I are like, we're 26 years old, 25 years old. We can work day and night. We're not going to fail. Nobody's going to take us down. And
did you know that from the day you started it? Was that kind of the mentality?
Well, yeah, we've always had that mentality. Everything you do, it's like, So Leo would come in and say, everything that went into this place failed. You're going to fail. So we were at about 100 restaurants. Leo walked by. We're like, Leo, I told you we weren't going to fail.
But you guys at this time, you're 22, nothing to lose, no finances. Plus, you built the restaurant for $20,000, the first one.
Yeah, well, the Pita Pit was $32,000.
$32,000. So now, if you want to build any new QSR restaurant, what, $300,000
at
least?
Yeah, at least.
$400,000 at least.
Yeah,
it was right next door. There's it's torn down on the building.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a pavement right next to the Brass here, and so I remember when the Brass opened too. I was one of those guys that I don't think this one's going to make it. So I'm not always hitting with home runs. Sometimes it's I'm striking out, because they had a couple of gentlemen that bought this, and then when the hub bought it, that really secured this place to never shut down. But it was packed since it opened. The Brass has always been a popular destination with the students. So so the 20s were just kind of learning the craft a bit. Learning, networking, food costs, labor.
What made you think you would be a hit with students? And obviously all the people that had previously been in that location had failed. Like, what gave you the conviction to think that you were going to be the one?
We'll see.
Well, you know what, James? That's a great question. Like, I look at it this way: having 2 daughters in university and one in grade 10 now, they never come home with any money. My daughters never say, "Dad, thanks for that money I saved. Here's $6,000 to put back in for September." They spend every cent, and that's okay. Like, they're here. You're not paying mortgages. You're not usually, unless you're Lucas, you probably own a couple apartment buildings by now.
I'm in overseas, some shelters.
So I felt that there's 50, 60,000 students here now. Like, this town is built on hospitals and universities and things. When they'd say, well, why don't you open next to this bar? This bar is the hottest bar in town. I'd be like, what's the oldest bar in town? Well, it's been here for 30 years. And I'll open up next to that guy because he'll be here for another 30. And so, when you have all these students, you have great summer cork sailing events. Like, this town is a city that stays alive. Like, even during COVID, a lot of you guys were here. Online ordering was popular with Skip the Dishes and Uber and all that. Kept a lot of our pita pits alive. But so we just looked at the sheer amount of people that were in this town that it would do well. And Guelph was the same way. And both these pita pits are still here and still doing real well.
Tell me about how when people would first come in, you guys were open until 2 a.m. The music was cranked. There was no space to walk.
Yeah, it was an
It was a
atmosphere.
party inside kind of thing. It's like
Bubba's,
Bubba's gets
yeah.
See, like Bubba still gets that way in 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But in the beginning, you asked, about first customers and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it wasn't. It was like $300 days, and we opened up at 11 in the morning, and we worked all the way around till 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
So you're open like 17, 18 hours a day, and you're mopping up. And we opened July 20th of '95, so it's daylight. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun's coming up, and you're like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do this for the rest of my life? This is terrible.
And what role would you play on like a day-to-day basis?
In the beginning, it was owner-operator.
They lived above it.
We lived right above it.
If there was an apartment building above the original one, they would go down and go in.
So what happens is, before cell phones, you had a broom handle. And so you went and laid on the couch for a few minutes to get a little rest, and if you got like 10, 15 people, and you'll boom, 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 boom with a broom handle, and you throw your pita pit hat, scurry down the stairs and say, hey, what can I get you? And that would be John and myself in there just kind of, sweating tzatziki sauce.
Yeah.
Like, you just worked day and night and kept labor at nothing because you're doing $300 days. And it took us, I think, 7 weeks to break $1,000. And pitas were like $3.90 and $4.75 back in the day. So, pita's now $12, $13 or whatever it is, but labor's gone up, rent's gone up, food costs gone up. But back in the day, we got introduced to all the gang here at Stages and AJ's at the time, and Grizzly Grill and the Brass. And there was a guy named Bijou, and Bijou will love that. I'm giving a shout out to Bijou because he was kind of one of our first customers. The first customer ever was a third-year Queen's student, a female. And so, a lot of people say, oh, I was your first customer. Like, not a dude, it was a girl. And she was a blonde-haired girl. And I can't remember where she was from, but I remember saying she ordered a chicken pita and she was our first customer. So she would be probably like 45 years old now and probably still remembers that she was the first.
What was the first day again?
July 20th of '95.
Yeah, so almost 30 years.
Yeah. So, and if she was 20, she could have been 20 years old, so it might be close to 50.
Yeah.
Jesus. So anyway, so Bijou came over, and he likes to say, I'll make sure, he likes to say that he was one of the head doormen, but I think he carried the glasses around and made sure the dishes were clean, but I like to give him the gears. But Bijou introduced us to all the guys, and it was Scott McPherson, and Pierce was just a young guy then, and he's been around for
I got a good story about Bijou. So Bijou told me, so he would work the night shifts at the hub, and then come back and order a pita on delivery, and they would do delivery. So then at 2 in the morning, he would order pita to his home address for delivery, then come by the store and say, hey, you're dropping off my home, give me a ride home.
So you get a free ride.
Free ride home, yeah.
Kill two birds with one stone.
That's a Lucas move, eh? Like, that's something Lucas would do for sure.
There's no fine print, exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of how that whole thing got started, with getting connected to the hub, and you know how it is. You build that culture and build a relationship. If they were having a pita eating contest over at Stages, you'd give them all the free food, and they'd say fire a bunch of hot peppers in them, and anything that the hub was doing, we'd try to get involved and actively support it, right? And the business started to grow, and when it was 95 was kind of working in the store here, 96, and then we started showing some interest in opening some pita pits. And so the second one we opened was in Peterborough. And Peterborough was about 1997, and it was a guy named Doug Fisher and my brother Martin Lang that opened that store. And then we opened Ottawa a week later in the Bywood Market with one of our employees, Rob Martin, who was he's one of those guys that he went to Queen's, graduated, went over and played soccer over in Europe, came back, didn't know what to do, so we hired him on, and he's one of those guys. Hey James, you'd say, hey, did you order Cisco? Done. Did you get that done? Catering? Done. Like he was on it.
Good employee.
So what we did was we did a partnership agreement. We put all the money up front. Once you pay us back, you're 50% owner. So he opened one on Bank Street, one on Elgin and Byward, and then he was a franchisee for about maybe 6 or 7 years. Got married, started having kids, and there's kind of a shelf life. Guys get into this and they think it's going to be really easy, and after 5 or 6 years, get a little bit burnt out and need to maybe move on and do something different. And so we've had a lot of that turnover, and it's good. We have some that have been around for 25 years, like Doug Fisher. I think you spoke to Doug. Just recently sold. He was my first franchisee, and he sold after like 26 years, 27 years doing it. Alex Papagiorgio, over 20 years.
So. When you started to franchise, was it tough to find all these people to employ, or
it was all of his friends?
It was just all your buddies.
Yeah, you know what happens is growing up in Oshawa at Eastdale, all my buddies that were, some of them were, not a lot of us went to university. We all kind of, in Oshawa, if you got a job at GM back in the 90s, you were set. You work from 1998 and you work till you're 50 years old and you're retired with a full pension. And so a lot of the guys, if they couldn't get into GM, were looking to do something else. And so Brad Arnott, Mike White, Matt Yates, like Alex Papagiorgio, Pete Karkoulis, who Pete. I probably the first 30 or 40 franchisees were all. My sister Julie Kay bought one in Belleville. Rob Roach and Warren Mallory bought down in Gainesville, Florida.
There was no sales strategy. It was just because the economics for a franchise is a buy-in fee, which was $25,000 for you guys.
Not even back then. Back then it would have been $5,000. So that grew.
Yeah, so $5,000 to get the name right, so to have their IP, and then they would connect you. Like he would connect you with the suppliers of who you need, which would be like Cisco.
Yeah, Cisco Foods.
Cisco. Give you your pita bread, and then it's up for you to then renovate your store, pay for your counters, and then if you do shit, then that's on you. But then if you do good, then it's your profits to keep, and they take 2%.
Well, what we did back in the original days, we did a flat rate royalty. So you pay us $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year. If you did $500,000 in sales, it was roughly 4% royalties. So if you did 5, 6, 7, 800, your royalties actually went down. So there's an incentive to drive sales. Instead of you do $1 million with certain companies, like say McDonald's, your royalties are on $1 million. And so we did that for a number of years because Johnny always said, listen, half these franchisees are going to steal from us, so at least we know we're getting $1,500 out of them.
Not declare the cash.
So, long story short, things have changed over the years, of course, and with computers. But back in the day, it was all cash. I bet you, 100% was cash because we'd put an ATM machine if somebody wanted a pita.
Oh, they must have declared half the revenue. Oh
yeah, like it was the Wild West. And so now you have probably 95% card. Like how often do you carry cash anymore?
Never.
So I left my wallet in Florida. That's why I had to pay cash here.
I had to pay for his trip.
Only to get into.
It was good times. We were young. Like I was 26 years old, having fun. Started growing the business, and the entrepreneurial spirit of certain people. I think. You got to find something that you're passionate about, and then it doesn't feel like work. You can work 17 hours a day, and your legs are killing you, but you're looking. I find that we had franchisees that they draw energy from their customers, and some that don't.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't, at the end of the day, they just want to pour scotch and can't stand looking at their restaurant, lock the door, and just get away from it. And then there's guys that after they're done, they can't wait to get to stages for a quick beer and say hi to guys. So you get that extroverted kind of personality. If you can find people like that, it's the right. This industry, if you're going to be, whether you're in Quiznos, Subway, whatever, if you're going to be in the food industry or the bar business, you better have that personality.
Talk about like when you were, a month in, what was All Master story? So a month in, they were a month selling pitas, like no one really ate pitas, like you get alone like wraps and the actual pita itself, and then
and I'll take a little bit of the high road on this whole.
Take the high road, but just tell them about the perseverance. What happened? Yeah.
So what happened was there was a place called Zamaster that where the Pita Pit is now in the National Training Center. That used to be a place called Zamaster Pizza, and Sal was a probably a 60 or 55-year-old Italian guy with his whole family working in there. And so when we were building the Pita Pit, John, I would always go over and eat pizza every day and support him. And because we were from small communities. John supported me at Ace Submarine, and I supported him with Alla Pizza. He wanted a pizza up there back and forth. I would never sell subs, and he would never sell pizza. We were buddies. And instantly, we just kind of connected with Sal, hanging out there, getting pizza every day, getting another pizza. And so as soon as we opened, he, maybe 2 weeks in, he put on his sign, pitas for $2.80 with a can of Coke. And we were $4.75, so he's half the price of ours.
Yeah.
So, with a can of Coke. And so I'm like, what the hell, man? So I go right through the door, because that's just not what we do. And like, I would never do that to my buddy or anyone in business. Run your own race, focus on your own race, hey, James. Don't focus on what's going on at Bubba's, what's going on at any of these other restaurants. Just focus on your own. So long story short, I went in to see him, and I said, like, what are you doing? Like, we've been in here for the last, 2 or 3 months eating your pizza, supporting you, and you're going to put pitas on, at least put them on for $4.75. I think it's a dirty move. And, I couldn't believe the landlord, the Springers, allowed it. But anyway, he was selling pitas for half price. So I just said to him, I go, listen, Sal, I'm 26 years old. I can work open to close. Can you? I said, one day I'm going to put you out of business. I'm going to lease this goddamn space. And so when he went out of business, I took his space. Because what happens is you can't make any money out of $2.80 pita. So he became... If you want a cigar pita, you went to Sal. If you wanted a real pita, you went to the Pita Pit. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the guys, all the doormen, we built relationships with all the staff and building. They'd still go past and get that $2.80 pita. Now he wasn't selling any pizza. And I told Lucas the story about the space on the other side. And I hope he hears this, because I said, well, I went to the landlord, the Springers, and I said, I want to lease the space on the other side and put a kick-ass pizza restaurant in there, because that's the business I was in before.
Kind of thing,
Yeah, so I'll take that spot. I'll have the Pita Pit, and Sal can be in the middle selling his cigar pitas. Well, he went instantly to Sal. Sal leased it, took the whole thing. So now he has 5,000 square feet selling cigar pitas. Well, put him out of business. And so years later, and I'm not a vindictive guy, but like, that's just dirty.
Yeah.
And I just said, what he did as I walked out the very first day, he goes, business is business, James. That's what he said. Business is business. I said, good to know. Good to know who I'm dealing with here. And you're not gonna put me out of business. I'll work open to close.
So open to close means 10 a.m.
till 4 o'clock in the morning.
4 a.m.
Yeah. Did you always have that like competitive nature, or
put a hockey stick in my hand, basketball, whatever it might be, and not fair, always fair, but play hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't let your teammates down. Mm-hmm. And so.
Open order.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Appreciate that.
Stand by.
Also, one thing I really wanted to ask you about is, obviously, entrepreneurship isn't the most risk-averse career path.
Right.
So I'm curious as to where you developed this kind of tolerance for risk. Was it
like Lucas said? I think when you're young, I'm married now with 4 daughters. I had none of that.
For the back table?
I had nothing to lose. And they're very dangerous people. And Sal didn't understand that. He had a lot to lose, had nothing to lose. I can work, you can't. So when you're young, to suggest to any entrepreneur that comes out after 4th year, do something that you love and it won't be a job.
Yeah.
They always say that, right? So and your parents will probably strangle me, but it's like, you get out of here, go in a couple different directions and find out what your passion is. And if you're passionate about it and you work harder than everybody else, you'll be fine. It's just the way it is, and that's exactly what I did. And I'm doing it again. We'll talk about Lightcaster, the brewery that I'm in. I've been in it now about a year, and the same things are happening. We already opened our first tap house. We're looking at we're looking at a spot here to open up the second one, and we'll talk about that offline.
Yeah, don't foreshadow it. Yeah, don't spoil it.
I definitely want to get to Lightcaster too.
Lightcaster is a lot of fun, but back to Pita Pit. So.
Why aren't you drinking Lightcaster beer? Canadian.
Well, they won't take it here.
I know, on the record. Yeah.
We'll cut that.
Scott, come on, man, buy my beer. No, I told Lucas, I go, Lucas, when you go to all the bars, say, man, everyone wants this Lightcaster beer. Thanks so much, appreciate it.
I even call it Lancaster.
Yeah, you do.
Well, because the bomber, the Lancaster. Yeah.
To cast light on something, that's how you have to keep remembering.
The British bomber in the war was the Lancaster, then I grew up in Ancaster.
So that you refer to it?
We have a Lancaster bomber in Ancaster.
And my last name's Lang, so they won't allow it to be Lancaster beer. It's like, it's not fair. Brady wouldn't allow that. But, so back to your question. Yeah, I think that it's a lot safer to get the 9-to-5 job. But what was that quote? I've said it to you before, where I want to live like other people won't, so I can live like other people can't. And that's how it's been. I worked extremely hard from 20 to 40.
Yeah.
So that from 40 to 55 now, I've had a very, very good life,
Yeah.
And so I always believe that you have to work 40 hours a week for 40 years. So from 20 to 60, and then you can retire if you're smart with your investments. So instead of working, I worked 80 hours a week or more from 20 to 40, so that I haven't had to really work the last 15, 20 years. So, it's how you want to do it. And when you're working 80 hours a week, you're not spending any money. You're not out buying new cars. I came here and I put my golf bag and my hockey bag, just threw it in the closet and didn't look at it. I'm just going to focus on the race.
And was that the vision, like right from the day you?
No,
the first.
No, I'd be lying if I told you that, James. It was more.
I had no clue.
I'm just trying to keep that damn restaurant open. I got a guy next to me selling pitas for $2.80 that's trying to kill me.
It wasn't just Zumhouse, by the way. It was other locations too in Kingston. They grew onto the pita trend.
Oh yeah. No, and there's a few that are still around that did the same thing, and I'm just like, really?
Could you sleep at night when you knew there were competitors starting to come in?
You know what? When you see a boxer that he doesn't think he's going to lose, that's how you have to be. Like, those MMA fighters, they don't go in that ring thinking they're going to lose. They think they're going to kill that guy. It has to be in their head, and if you don't go in that way, you feel you're going to lose, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
I always say that I do a lot of barefoot water skiing, and they say when you're barefooting, even at 55 years old, like I still barefoot.
Awesome.
If you look down, you go down.
Yeah.
So I'm always telling, because I have a boom on the side of the boat so they can hang on to it, but they want to look at their feet. As soon as you do that, what happens is you go down. So focus on where you want to go. And I think that's been always the thing that I had my vision with John, and John and I had the exact same vision, and it was put our head down and just go full tilt until we got to where we wanted to be. John's journey ended in 2005. He decided he wanted out. Had a couple kids, and John burns fast and hard, and he was I can't do this anymore. And so we bought him out, and then bought him out of International in 07, then out of Canada in 09. And I can still consider him a friend. I don't see him very often. He lives in Quebec and skis every day in Mount Tremblant, where I'm still pouring beers and working hard. But it was a different vision. I enjoyed what I was doing still. And he said that. We kind of sat down and talked about it when we were going to exit. And that's another thing, have an exit plan. He always said that to me, have a time when you say, I can't do this anymore. And his was a lot earlier than mine. But by the time I got out of Pita Pit 2 years ago, I went through COVID. And COVID, we lost 70 locations.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is, and this isn't a negative on those franchisees, but probably 50 of them were hanging on by a thread. They weren't making much money before COVID.
In the market.
It really was. There was 180,000 restaurants shut down during COVID permanently. And so it was tough times for everybody. So when I saw that happen, our sales overnight dropped 90% and didn't come back for a year. And so we, all the partners kind of looked at each other and went, wow, like, who would have thought? Because I always thought university towns were recession-proof. Nothing could, beat up on a university town. It wasn't the case. And a lot of our stores were in those markets. We had 60 stores in Auckland, New Zealand, downtown in Auckland, and we lost 35 overnight. Like they were done. There was nobody there. And Auckland was locked down extremely hard, a little bit like how we were in Canada.
Dubai, Korea, you lost?
Yeah, we lost all over the world, Canada, knock on wood, we were locked down hard. We never lost one location during COVID. Wow. And I went out and traveled the whole time, James. I had to quarantine up at the cottage. Bob Gainey's my neighbor, the hockey player, and he has pretty damn good ice out in front of his place. And he's won like 5 Stanley Cups with Montreal Canadiens. And so the guys were saying that my ice was just as good as his, or maybe even better. Every night I'd be out there with a cold beer about 11 o'clock with the dogs, just water in the ice and putting a little layer on. And it was because I had to be there for 2 weeks. When you're in COVID, it's like you can't be at home. They're checking on you to make sure you're in lockdown. But that was tough times. So when we built sales right back up to where they were before COVID, and we had an opportunity to sell out to Foodtastic, which owns a ton of brands. Freshie, they bought us, and I think they have about 25 brands now out of Montreal. And it was a fair deal. They've been good guys to work with, and it was kind of over 3 years to buy out the whole part of us. And so nothing but positive things to say about that. And so I sat there for about a year and golfed a little bit, and my golf game wasn't getting any better, and had an opportunity to buy into this brewery. So,
and what led to that? Because a lot of people when they sell businesses, they could go right into retirement and stop. What kind of made you want to get back and have some skin in the game?
Well, to step back about maybe a few months, I had a couple guys golfing call me up, Jake Van Heverbeck and Jim Gorey, and they were out on the 18th hole. Both of them are terrible golfers, the worst golfers you've ever seen. They really are. And so they said, every time I swing this club, my mood changes. Right? So, from positive to negative, mostly negative. If you're a golfer, you know what I'm talking about. You have a beautiful drive, you pull out your wedge, and you fire it off into the bushes. You're like, are you kidding me? So they said, what's your thoughts? You want to partner up, and we're going to open up a clothing line called Mood Swing Golf. And so this was about a year and a half ago. I said, I love the name.
That is a great name.
And I said, you know what, not just golf, like baseball, if you hit the ball out of the park, how your mood changes. Fishing, you cast a rod and catch a fish. So that's how Mood Swing Athletics starts. So cricket paddle, baseball bat, hockey stick, anything. So we have a clothing line, golf shirts and apparel that we've been working with Jake and Jim and Braden Martinick out of the US. And I was doing that for a few months before. And Jim kept talking to me a little bit about his brewery. He opened up just before COVID. He's the brewmaster. And he owned it was called New Ritual. And so Jim's working all through COVID, trying to build up clients. Bars are shut down, things are open. So it was challenging times for him and his partners. And he goes, it'd be great to maybe get some new blood in here and buy out some of my partners. I'd like to stay on if I could. And so, we had an opportunity to purchase that. And like everything I've ever done is I don't want to do it by myself. I'll bring on certain strategic partners, the right seat of the bus, and bring on a CEO or bring on a VP of operations, bring on a VP of construction, have the right guys so that you can really grow quickly. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to Braden Martinick, who is the president of Pita Pit USA, and I said, what's the chances of you want to get involved with this? So he looked at it for a little bit. He goes, yeah, you know what, I'm same way. We're been about a year since he had sold out. He was one of my Canadian partners with Pita Pit. And he goes, yeah, I'm in, let's see how it goes. So it's a very challenging business. You think the restaurant business is difficult? The alcohol and beer industry, craft beer is about 10% of the market, and the big boys, and that's why a lot of these guys like the Brass and Stages and AJs, they stay with Labatt's and Molson, and the kickbacks and the rebates that they get. It's hard for the little guys to get into it. So my strategy is to build tap houses and do exactly what I did with Pita Pit and grow. We opened up over 800 restaurants in about 25 years, so that journey was over. And I was looking to do something else. So the Lightcaster journey has just started, but I think you can navigate the waters a little easier the second time around. You say, oh, I wouldn't do that, and even if you think about, the people that were the right franchisees, once we start doing this, I know who to pick. And some of those times, maybe in the 2000s, 2010 to 2015, James, I was in a point where we were growing so fast. I almost thought anyone that could fog a mirror could run a Pita Pit, and it's not for everybody. Yeah. Being an entrepreneur and being, because you go into these Pita Pits and you have to be a marketer. Sometimes you have to be a parent. You're helping kids that are having a tough time. You gotta, be an accountant.
Some franchisees who run the show, and others who are just passive, and that's fine too if they have a good general manager running it. But that's hard. That's not the case always.
Yeah, so, a community ambassador, you got to be in your store all the time, networking, connecting. That's a lot of work for certain people. Get in about 6 months and they go, what have I done? Yeah. So our goal is always to eliminate that before that happens. So I think over the years you learn from your mistakes. And we had international franchisees. We opened up in Panama City, Panama, almost the same day that we opened up in Auckland. The boys in New Zealand opened up 117 stores and they opened up 2. And so it was just, these guys had it figured out. They just were.
They would sell the rights to the country to the individuals, and then say, okay, you can sell as many Pita Pits as you want within this country. You take your revenue share, and then you take a bit from their revenue share.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So you give them all the tools to be successful, and that's exactly it. We took about 20% of what they brought in. So if they brought in 7% royalties, we take 1.4, and so. If you take any more than that, they're going to hide it anyway. So you just, and they're 15,000 kilometers away. You got to trust these guys. So that whole thing was kind of a barbecue test where, You guys got to come up to Canada, meet my family, meet my wife, come over for a barbecue. And if the dog likes you, the kids were jumping on Chris and Dwayne's knee, and they have kids themselves, and it was the right fit. It took about a year to put that deal together. So you don't put it together in a weekend or overnight drinking beer.
Yeah.
Like, it takes time. I got to fly over there and spend some time. And one of the things that I think a lot of brands make the mistake of, they leave Canada or they leave the U.S. and say, this is the way it has to be. It isn't. If you go over to New Zealand, it's very different. So you can put the name on the front, but the menu has to be unique for their culture and their taste buds, especially if you're like we failed in Japan. I think maybe because of the wrong people running it. We failed in Korea, same kind of thing. He was, his dad was a very successful guy. This guy snowboarded all over the world, and now he's 27 years old, and his dad gives him a chunk of money to develop Pita Pit. So, he wasn't earning. I would say you got to earn the right to leave your restaurant.
Tell him about the Korea store with the fake location.
Oh,
So before he moved there, well, I'll give an intro. That's up to you. So this guy reached out, wanted to get the master franchise.
Master
right?
franchisee.
Korea? Wanted to buy them. Opening day, or about to be opening day, he goes out to Korea, walking on the street, and then sees another Pita Pit location, not associated with them.
Yeah, so we just walked in, and so Toshi, his name is TK. TK and I were sitting there, having a pita at a Pita Pit in Korea, in Seoul, and nothing to do with us. And the guy walks by me.
Like a complete ripoff, like not a real Pita Pit.
Korean descent gentleman walked by, and he had a Canadian tattoo on his calf as he walked by. And so we had to get the lawyers involved, so we just got Peter involved. And so and I told Lucas this, I think how I worded it. I go, I don't want to fight with this guy. I said, why don't you talk to him? Say, listen, you can't be a rip-off Pita Pit, but you can be a part of us if you want to open up and pay us royalties, sign a new franchise agreement, be a part of ours. Instead of going in there, you got to shut this all down. Why not maybe embrace him and get him on board with us? He's a Canadian that probably loved Pita Pit, went back home to Korea and said, hey, I'll just do this, they'll never know. And so anyway, long story short, he never lasted. He went out of business. And so did TK. But yeah, so we've had a lot of failures too, like ones that did very well and ones that didn't. And you know what? I've always said that an A franchisee could open up a C location and kill it. But if you have an A location with a C franchisee, they'll fail every time.
Would you say it's more like, what's the biggest variable? Like, is it just the franchisee's reason for failure, or are there other variables involved as
Guys,
well?
you go to restaurants all around here. It's attention to detail, the experience, right? Food costs and labor. If your food costs and labor are out of whack, you're out of business. So, people are stealing from you. The owner's never there. You walk in and all the lights are burnt out. The bathrooms are disgusting. They're supposed to be, I walk all the way across campus with James to go get a pita, and they're closed. And they're supposed to be open till 9. It's like, God damn it. Chairs are up at 10 to 9. I used to joke and say, I can tell whether a Pita Pit's run properly from 10,000 miles away. And so how do you do that? Pick up the phone, call the store. 1 ring, 2 rings, 5 rings, 12 rings. 12 rings, and the guy would say, Pita Pit. You're like, nah. Answer that phone and attention to detail. Make sure the bathrooms are clean. Make sure as soon as you walk through the door, it's like, hey, what's going on, Lucas, James, come on down here. I'll set you up. I know your names because I know the community. I own the mile around my restaurant or my kilometer. And
tell me what that means, the mile concept one.
Yeah, it's like, in every direction. I don't want to do a delivery that takes my driver away for more than, say, maybe 8 or 10 minutes. So 1 kilometer, turn around, be back. And look after that kilometer. Make sure that everyone in that kilometer gets treated incredible. So if I order the pitas for noon and they get there at 2:30 in the afternoon, I'm pissed off. And then you don't even call and say, listen, I'm so sorry the driver had a flat tire. That was on me. Like, just own it, right, and control it. And a lot of these franchisees don't.
So how did you, I guess it's hard to do, but how did you ensure that the right people were hired all across franchising globally?
Oh,
that's gotta be impossible.
What a great question. I think that that's one of the reasons why you can't get sleep at night, because it does get diluted. It dilutes and it dilutes and it dilutes, and you have coaches and you have regional coaches that care about the Pita Pit more than the franchisee does. And then you have bad situations. I remember in Missoula, Montana, and you can look it up. A girl got in a fight, spit in the girl's pita, whipped it right in her face.
Did you watch this video? It went viral on the...
millions of hits, and what had happened was these 2 girls were drinking at the bars, and been thrown out of a bar because they whipped drinks in a bartender's face and a doorman's face. Thrown out of the bar. They came down. The one girl was videoing, and she's taunting her and taunting. You're taunting someone that's been working for 8 or 10 hours serving drunks, and it says, "I dare you to spit in my pita." So she spit in the pita, whipped it at her, jumped the thing, and started punching her and fighting with her. You know, we had to let her go. The franchisee had to apologize to the community, and it's like, I felt bad for the whole situation, because I've been there where in the beginning you've been in here for 16 hours and the guy's hitting your hat like this. You're a Subway wannabe, you know, and you're like, here you go, buddy, have a good day. And so that's what we bought into, you know. I can't tell the guy to F off and get out of my restaurant, but it's like, you can't, you know, you're going to get that. And we had those situations, you know, one after another. So when it was little, we could contain it. I knew every franchisee, I knew their kids, I knew their family, the barbecue test. But as you're growing, and the one year we opened up 97 stores. You know, I always prided myself on getting to every single location. I got to a point, we have stores in Alaska I've never been to. You know, we have stores in Puerto Rico I've never been to, and all over the world. So what I started kind of exploded, and when it exploded, then you lose touch. And not only that, to keep going, James, then you have partners. You know, I haven't even got on to nepotism and partnerships and dealing with people that have different visions.
The equity of the whole
that have different visions in what your vision is. And so, yeah, it's if back to the whole point of this, I think this podcast was, you know, some pitfalls and things to watch out as a young entrepreneur getting out of, you know, Queen's Commerce is maybe own 51% of whatever you do. Have all the if you believe that you make good decisions, have the decision making in your company, so that don't dilute that until you want to get out. You know, and that was some of the mistakes I made. I heard a stat that 90% of the businesses in Canada are family owned, and 30% of them are passed on, because as soon as you pass on the second generation, there's only 30%, so 7% of them fail.
Yeah.
And so nepotism. I think if you want to ask my biggest weakness is allowing that to creep into my company many times over, and all of them know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
I guess
You get this, you know. Hey, I'm gonna hire my son as CEO. I'm gonna hire my brother-in-law,
Exactly.
you know.
So
you know.
his U.S. partners that he sold the U.S. stake to, when John sold his U.S. shares, he came in and formed a group of buyers to buy John out. John, the original business partner, being his one partner who financed the deal, then brought on his son to run the entity, and his son made a series of bad decisions which were left everyone dumbfounded. That's a nice way to say it?
Yeah.
So
you
know
know
what a family
and,
business is?
Yeah, and then, you know, brought on their son-in-laws, and everyone in the family got a job, you know.
Yeah.
And one thing I always said, I want to always put the right person on the right seat of the bus, and, you know, hire that way. But and not only that family, you know, even the last 10 years with Pita Pit Canada. So, you know, I feel sometimes it's easier, and now with Lightcaster, absolutely none of that. We won't allow it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a shame, because maybe some of those people. So that'd be a tip to some young, you know, entrepreneurial guys. It's like, be very mindful when you, you know, I haven't spoken to my brother in 10 years, because he's 5 years older. He was my franchisee in Peterborough, and things didn't go the way he wanted it, and it's caused a rift between our families. Yeah. My sister Julie Kay, no problem at all. We're best friends.
Julie Kay's his sister.
Yeah, she's my sister. She had the store in Belleville, so she got it and understood, you know, the rules of franchising. Martin and I never really saw eye to eye, and so it's caused that tension. So there's been a lot of lost some friends over it, and that's part of the journey. And I put my head on my pillow every night, knowing that I never screwed any of those people over. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, they did it to themselves, and I'll say it over and over again. You know, it's like, you know, you can't take the winters off, you can't take the summers off, and expect everyone else to do the job. If you're buying a business, get in there and own it. And own that mile. A lot of these guys wouldn't, and then they bitch because, you know, there's a little bit of theft, so your food costs go up. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Before you know it, you're not. We are in squeaky thin margins in the restaurant industry, and even in the bar business. So
it's like a 10%, 20% profit at most.
Yeah, you're not getting rich on one. So you got 2 or 3 or 4 of these, and you'll do well with it, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably if any of these guys, these Queen students, could take something from it, it would be the fact that be very mindful that, and one of the things I always like to do too, James, it's like, okay, I'm going to record what we're going to talk about for the next hour. And you can listen to it every month, every 6 months, whatever the hell you want to do. But this is what you agree to. So are you okay that I'm taking royalties? And you say, yeah, I'm excited. I want to get a Pita Pit. I'm so excited about getting at one of your stores. So we take royalties. We take 4% royalties. We also take 1.8% in rebates, which is when I buy a case of chicken, we take a little bit back. Are you okay with that? Yeah, sure. So what's that, like 6% roughly? And we also make a little bit of money here on equipment rebates. So when you buy your equipment package for $80, we make another $10,000 because head office has to be healthy. We have to be profitable so that you don't call and we're not there. And so are you okay with it? And it's going to cost you roughly, it's a $25,000 franchisee. Build out's going to be somewhere about $350,000 to $400,000. Are you okay with that? Yes. And then boom, and then listen to that tape every 6 months because you never told me this or you never told me that. It's like,
okay, so on this, like, it's not like for a lot of QSR, like quick service restaurant, like for all these joints, it's not like you put the $400 in, build it out, and then that's a pass. It's not like a rental property. You just sit there, do nothing, and then you collect the
and even rental properties are not passive.
Well, exactly. Even if you hire you can hire a management company, but in that essence too, it's like, especially for these like not lower, but like startup-y, now I'd say like medium tier, not necessarily household name QSR joints, you still need to actively manage it as the sole franchisee. Yeah. And if you want to do 2, 3, that's great, but then that's more work for you.
Yeah, so, no, you know what, I learned from a lot of these situations over the last, 28 years of doing this with, who you'd bring on as a partner, who you want. But that'd be something I'd say to young guys, just be, the older guys that have the money don't want to work. Younger guys don't have the money, and they have the young legs and they can work. So it's kind of a double-edged sword a bit. So you get the old 55-year-old guy that wants to invest and get a return. And then you get the young guys that say, I have no money, but I can work 17-hour days. And they're hard to find now, but that's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
In this.
Thank you.
Yeah, doing great.
Thank you.
In my industry, right?
Have you, like a common thing in entrepreneurship is like the apprenticeship model, where you potentially go and work for somebody who's excelled in their field and learn from them. Would you recommend that to? Would you recommend that to students, like students who want to get into entrepreneurship? Here, I'll give it a little tip. That'll make it better.
Come on, Lucas.
Thank you.
You big baby. You've never had any food before. So yeah, go on with the question.
In a restaurant.
Don't pour the beer.
You never tip him? Okay.
I just pay for it. I know.
Sorry.
Go ahead, James. Lucas is trying to screw up your podcast here.
I add some commentary.
Yeah, no, we need the laughs. I was going to get into this later, but just there's a lot of students in university now who've like started to, look away from the more conventional career paths, especially in like a degree like commerce. So I'm curious, like what advice would you offer to somebody who's interested in entrepreneurship? Who's maybe about to graduate university and they're just not really sure what to do.
Add who has little money. Like most people who graduate have an estate of less than $15,000.
Yeah, the great thing is you guys are very hireable. Everyone wants someone to come from Queen's Commerce. So find a couple different paths that you go learn the business from an expert, and they'll probably either pull you into that business. And one of the things I've always done is, like, as soon as I surround myself with excellence, I have good partners. I bring them on and tie them in as partners, and you have to earn that partnership over a period of time. Don't give it to them instantly. But if I have you working with me, James, for the next 5 to 7 years, I'm going to know everything about you, whether you were the right partner or not. And so I tie you into some kind of, no different than WestJet. And a lot of these companies, as soon as you get hired on, you become a partner. But yeah, I'll use an example. Jimmy Guacos, as you know the story. My sister-in-law opened up a Mexican, she called me and she said, I have 4 kids, they're all done school now. I'm sitting at home, I want to do something. I want to open up a restaurant. I go, don't do it.
It's a small chain, Jimmy.
It's like a little burrito concept, a little like, what's another one that
it's like burrito bowl, or it's a burrito bowl kind of. They have like 10, 20 locations across Canada?
No, they're out of business. I'll tell that story in a second here, but the method behind it was the right method. So I said, if you're going to do it, go learn. What's the guys downtown Toronto? The Burrito Boys? They're right on Adelaide Street. Yeah. She went and got a job. I go get a job there. So she gets a job. She works for them about 6 months, and she's amazing behind the counter, working and focusing on the learning the business. And they want to hire her on as a manager. at that time, she came back to me and said, okay, what's the next steps? So the next steps are to, you got to find a place to open up, and she wanted to open in Oshawa. So we'll get my lawyer, Peter Panopoulos, who's ex-Queens guy, to help you negotiate a lease. You got to get Cisco Foods, get what's your menu look like. So, I kind of worked through the whole thing with her, but she went and focused for the first 6 months of learning the business. So for a Queens student, I'd say the same thing. You guys are young, you have time. Yeah. You can say, I'm kind of interested in this field. Go get a job in that field. Learn a little bit about it before you get into it too far. That's what, I'm in the restaurant business. I'm not fourth year, or a guy like Lucas, that his doors are wide open for a lot of opportunities. I barely got out of high school.
Small doors.
Well, small doors, as long as there's a lot of money in those small doors.
It's more like the elf doors.
Lucas gets it. I barely got out of school. I surround myself with really smart people at the picnic table. I make sure I have good accountants, good lawyers, good partners. And it makes my life a lot easier. But my vision, and I knew what my vision was, and I stuck to it. So yeah, that's a hard question, because it's got to be something that they're passionate about, or they won't stick with it.
Knowing what you know now, is there, in your wildest dreams, is there anything you wish you'd pursued that you didn't get to pursue? Or maybe that if you were back in my age, 21, then you would go and...
I tried to be a fireman, but thank God I didn't get on there.
Really scared of fire.
Yeah, I'm scared of fires, and I went in Peterborough to do the testing, and I don't know if I told you that story.
You told me this.
Oh, he knows every story. Jeez, I shouldn't. Lucas, I should just put a cardboard cutout and let Lucas tell the stories. But I went into Trent University, and they had like the lecture hall. So a guy comes out, he starts talking like this, probably 50-year-old, fire chief. And he's talking away, I'm just sitting there, not listening to anything he's saying. Then he says, okay guys, the exam's on everything I just said. I just flipped the paper over, I just walked out. Is it still recording?
Yeah, we're good. I just gotta make sure every couple minutes.
If
it's not recording, I'll freak out.
I'll have to come back next week and drink some more beers on Wednesday if it doesn't record properly.
Yeah, I'll just reschedule.
So this is one of those like Rogan episodes where we can just like finish it.
Well,
we can stop and start whenever
Lucas had to put up with me recording stuff for like a year and a half for the book, but anyway, so I tried to get in the fire department. It was really hard to get on.
Yeah.
But there's a good example. All my buddies in Oshawa that went to Eastdale that kept going and volunteering and moved to different towns and living close to the fire hall, all finally got on. Perseverance till they finally did what they want, because they were passionate about getting on the fire department. I wasn't. It was like he said, it's like, I don't know about this. So you kind of throw the spaghetti at the walls. I kind of like that idea that I don't want to deliver pizzas for the rest of my life, but I love people and I love being in that atmosphere. So I think when you have the ability to graduate from one of the greatest schools in Canada, and the doors are a lot more wide open. So open those doors and experience that for the next year or two, so you don't get into something that you hate for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Because if you're passionate about it and you love it, man, it'll be a great life.
But for you, like, what was the flip switch? The switch that flipped, per se. Like, you flunked out of Durham and Sir Sanford Fleming twice, and then firefighting. But then, as soon as you got your own pizza joint, then you took it seriously? Or what was it, pride and ownership? Or what made it
But
special?
even then, Lucas, because you're 21, 22 years old, still didn't take it serious. I was doing it, like I was working.
You were working more than anyone else.
You take it serious as the fact that you got to pay your bills. But I didn't have any kids. You went home, you bought a case of beer on the weekends, you had a couple beers. Like, you could live off like $50. Yeah, $50 doesn't go too far now with 4 kids in private school and university. I can't afford to not work now. It's like freedom 80 years old now, James.
How much is the case Canadian that goes for now? Like 75?
It's ridiculous.
For 24 Canadian?
Yeah.
Is that what it is back in the day?
For 24 tall boys? $75?
$17 for a case of beer, boys, in the late 80s. So, but there was no fear. Like I said, you didn't care about. I had a 1977 Oldsmobile Delta 98 I bought for $50 from Doug Fisher, and it's the only car I ever made money on, because I drove it for like a year, delivering pizzas out in Newcastle, and then there was something wrong with the thermostat. Every time it got hot, it would shut off, and so I took it to the mechanic. He goes, "Oh, it's gonna be $300 to look at." I'm like, "I paid $300. I paid $50 for the car." So I drove it to the wreckers, and they gave me $112 for it because they paid by the ton. So it was a little over 2 ton. It was just this massive massive car, but yeah, you know what I mean. So you drove off, one of your buddies picked you up in their Chevette, and off you went back to the restaurant, and you had no fear. I think the fear happens when COVID hits. Fear happens when you start having children. And you're like, oh my God, I remember when my daughter Cameron was born, I was like sitting out front, and I don't smoke cigars, but I was smoking a cigar going, I'm responsible for this girl now for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
She's 23 years old now and just finished up at York. And so things are very different now. I think they always say that when you're young, you can take those risks. Time allows you to have those risks. As you get older, you have to be a little bit more calculated on your decisions, right?
Would you say you had less pressure to make calculated decisions, or to not go ahead and purchase a pizza joint because your crowd that you grew up with was doing similar things as of you? What I mean is, like, James and I, a lot of our friends are working a lot of very high-level places, and so there's an inherent pressure for us to match such high-level places. But your friends who you grew up with weren't as such. Exactly.
Yeah, like there's some options. Like, you can go into a fairly prestigious job, get paid well, or you could do something maybe more risky that maybe wouldn't pay off in your first couple years nearly as much as your friends would be making.
Right.
So I don't know, we're from like a bit of a different...
You really are, guys, and I said that to you 4 years ago when he brought me into Queens to that Smith meeting.
5 years ago.
Was that 5 years?
Yeah. No, it would have been 4.5. Yeah.
Guys, the doors are open for you. You guys have that opportunity. You have great education. You're smart kids. Shame on you if you don't do great things. You have everything. The doors are ready for you. You're young, and lots of opportunity. I think the guys like my friends, a lot of them, they barely got out of high school, and there's a lot less. And I say that's my children. They all went to private school. They all went to TCS in Port Hope, and Paige is here at Queen's doing quite well. Cameron's done, and I'm giving them all the opportunities that maybe I didn't take advantage of.
Yeah.
And so I did it my own way, and I've done quite well with it. And I'm doing it again now in the very, very, very competitive industry of the beer industry. James, I appreciate this because this is just what I've talked about to Lucas for years. I've been talking about for the last 30 years. Never pick on the neighbors. Go spend your money, get your hair cut locally, do your banking, go to the bars locally, spend your money in this community, and this community will support you. Mm-hmm. And I've been a firm believer in that. Don't have a Pita Pit in Kingston and live in Napa Neat.
Yeah. But do you know how it feels good when you go back home and you go to the same small business every single time you're home, you say hi, they know you by name.
Yeah.
Like, I've been getting my haircut, well, I haven't been in a while, but my haircut by the same guy since grade 10. Exactly. It's grade 10 in his garage. And then 7 years later, 7 years later now, I'm still going to the same guy. I don't get my haircut till I see him. Go to the same breakfast place when I'm back home every single time. My whole family by name. It feels good. It feels special. Yeah.
There's remember those the two NFL brothers that went against each other. I think it was like 2011. The Sean Brooks or
the Mannings. There's a lot of
no. They were coaches.
Oh.
Two coaches.
I don't remember.
And it was 2011. Baltimore, the Ravens. He was the head coach, and so he's going against his brother for the Super Bowl. And they interviewed the father, if I get the story right, and they said, "What, amazing! Your two sons, the pinnacle of their career, going for the Super Bowl. What did you teach these two men?" He goes, "To attack life with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind." And when I heard that, it gives you chills. And I remember Kevin Pressburger, one of my business partners, would always say that. I was like, that is like one of the coolest things. It's like, wake up in the morning and wake up and don't groan. It's like, oh, I need my coffee. Get up and attack life with that enthusiasm, and you'll do great things at whatever you do.
Yeah.
You guys have the opportunity, your crew coming out of Kingston, Ontario, have the opportunity to do amazing things. And so do it. Don't bitch about it. Say, oh, life is tough, it's hard, I got to work 40 hours a week. It's like, no. If you want to accomplish stuff, you got to work hard at it.
Have you seen the new finance plan that got released yesterday? A little bit harder now.
I know.
Okay, easier for you to say in what are you, the Diefenbaker era?
I'm curious.
Diefenbaker, I love it.
Building on that, so say you're a student, you have an idea. Yeah. There's just so many people out there who have ideas, but they're not really willing to take action on it.
Because the thinkers think about it, the doers do it. By the time the thinkers have thought about it, the doers have already done it. You're like, oh man, I should have opened that restaurant in that corner.
But I think the fear for most is probably failure, would you say? Like, people are just scared of failing and failing in front of their friends and that type of thing.
But also failing financially. Like, it's like for a thing like his business, where you want to, like, you got a lot of financial commitment. You got to take a lease out. You got to pay the contractors. First, like, you didn't have the working capital to use. Like,
terrifying.
You can't do what you do today nowadays. With $35,000, that is it. It would be $400, and then landlords take credit checks, and et cetera, and et cetera. And that's why all these software stories come to be. But then even then, it's like it's a dime a dozen.
So what do you tell yourself when you're like collecting debt and things aren't looking good? Like how you've clearly trained your brain how to persevere through these situations.
Yeah, no. So you know what I've made some other investments that have been sound, some real estate investments. So I look at it, I always say to even my wife, I go, the worst case scenario, sell the house. You know, worst case, I don't care. Sell the cottage, you know, sell the building, and then we'll have that money. Like, I got enough accumulated that I'll be fine either way. So I can take these chances. And I got partners that are all focused, like laser focused on this thing being successful, because a lot of them have put money into it, right? You got cash in the game, you're going to work a lot harder than if you're just collecting a paycheck. And so I don't want employees. I want partners. And when you have partners, you know, I have veto rights on every decision, because I made that mistake with had to look at the camera for that one many times. And so when I knew the direction that we should have went and they didn't do it, it cost.
You talking about Canada or US?
US. New Zealand has more stores than they have. New Zealand, New Zealand has 4 million people, and they have more stores than they have in the United States of America.
When they sold the US rights, stores were flat. They were net zero. They would gain some, lose some, just flat.
Yeah. We John got bought out. We had 71 restaurants in the US, and we have less now. That is all about the ownership. So
yeah. Well,
and this ain't about being negative, and it could get back to them, and I don't really care. It's a shame that people don't understand that. Like I said, 90% of the family-owned businesses in Canada, if they pass it down to their family, are going to fail.
Yeah.
They just will. Second generation don't care about it like the founder does.
Yeah, it's like, how many family-owned second, third generation businesses can you think of across the world?
Yeah.
Right now.
Gucci. And they failed.
Okay, Gucci. Yeah, good. Gucci. Yes. How many else?
Yeah.
Okay. And in Canada, there's PowerCorp, kinda. Thomson Reuters, kinda, and then everything else is up for grabs. Like, you either liquidate and you get some outside people in, or it just goes bust.
Yeah, you're wiser to bring on a professional team and let the kids collect a paycheck. Like, just sit over there and watch. You know, and that's hard to do, because you don't want your son or your daughter I want them to be the new CEO, and they can do it, and you get blinders on that. Everyone else is telling you don't do this, and they go, no, they're the right person. And so that nepotism has destroyed many companies over the years.
Is Ford still family owned?
What's that?
Is Ford?
Henry Ford from the original Ford?
But is the CEO of Ford still a Ford family?
No, I'm sure. I don't know.
Maybe. What was there?
Yeah.
Anyways.
But also, you know what? It's terrifying. Hey, James, it's terrifying. Like, especially at your age, you're coming out of school. You know, like you said, you want to make it big. You want to do something, maybe do something on your own. Don't really want to work for somebody else, but might be the best thing you could possibly do. At 50 years old, I shrunk the amount of people that I hang out with. You know, I eliminated a lot of people that bring me down, that are negative, and it's amazing. You don't miss them, and it's actually wonderful to do that. Don't do it at your age. Shrink and then have control. And because I believe that I listen to all my partners, and then we make the right decision. If they all say, Nelson, we got to go this direction, I go that direction. Yeah. I say, I'll support it 100%. I don't agree with it, but if you all think that this is the way I'll go, I'll support it until it either is very successful or fails. I'm not going to sabotage it or try to, you know, belittle it. It's like, this is the direction that Lucas and James want to go. Yeah, that part of it was the part I loved the most, and I missed the most about Pita Pit, is the time that, you know, a lot of these franchisees became good friends. You know, you spent 28 years with people. It was tough. And when you sell to private equity, you can't say a word to anyone. Some really good people.
It is an NDA.
Yeah, and so like the night before, it's getting announced tomorrow, you know, Canada-wide, that Pita Pit sold out to Foodtastic. It was a real happy day and a sad day at the same time. So, you know, a lot of those people that you just will never see again. he spends so much time with them. So.
Like sad because people were upset that they were caught off guard, or
Yeah, people like Marina. Marina's like, she's family to me, and I couldn't talk to Marina about it until she was one of the first people I called, and he knows Marina. So that part was tough to navigate and make sure. And we all took kind of 5 or 6 people that we were really close to and called each one of them and had that conversation. And one good thing that Foodtastic did was took them all on board and gave them an employment agreement with a new company. So not all of them stayed because their journey is different than ours was. And so quite a few of them have moved on to other concepts. But there's still some there, like Marina and
Nelson Costa's still there.
Nelson's still there, Marina's there.
Nelson Costa was the guy who was head of construction.
Yep.
That was his title. Built all of the first.
Yeah, he built store number 4.
Yeah.
And so he's still with the company.
Yeah, here's how scrappy the early days were, where they would open up a new location, even in the U.S. too, and Nelson Costa would drive down, didn't want to spend money in a hotel room, sleep on a cardboard box. In the location, no AC, no heating, and then start building the next day. Yeah, and then you could turn a 10-day development to a 5-day development.
He would load up his car with tools and head out to like Fort McMurray and Grand Prairie and just build stores on the way back. And they'd build them in about 6 weeks. They'd be gone for like 6 months from his wife and family, his little boys. And the guy,
he owns the 2 in Kingston.
He's a loyal friend. Him and his wife and the kids. They're just good people. We're still good friends, so it's funny, certain people I stayed in contact with, but when you have that many, some you just lose contact with, right?
So would you recommend, I have no baggage in my life right now. I'm, just graduating school. It's not like I have a family. I don't have kids or anything like that. Don't plan on having that for a while. It'd be tough to start something when you have that in your life, would it not be? And I'm just thinking about with Lightcaster, is this new venture feel like a lot of risk right now, or are you still very confident that everything will work out perfectly well?
You know what? It's funny you say that because I bought a market up on Stony Lake, and Stony Lake's about an hour north of half an hour north of Peterborough, and it's a 100-year-old building. And we've had a real challenging time with the building department. Yeah. And what should have taken 6 months is now 2.5 years into it, and invested a ton of money.
You're not open yet for the market?
We just got our building permit, so now we got to put that together. So about 3 years to do it, and right after COVID. So you'd think that they'd want to work with you, and it's been a real challenge. And I'm going to leave it at that in case because we're not completely done yet. We got it open, and so. I invested a lot of money in that, so it's like, what have I done? It was just a bad investment. One day, it could have been a really great experience, but it's caused, people to break up, like my business partner and his wife, and so I've had some of those kind of situations too. So back to the question, I'm going to be 55 in June. Like my wife's like sometimes, so what are you doing? Like what? Why do you need to keep driving to the next level? And it's like. Well, one, because I have 4 daughters and they're not done university, but the other is I kind of love what I do, man. You know how it is. It's like after 3 years, I have to get back and do something. I can't just sit at home. I'm sick of golf. I'm getting worse at golf than I'm golfing more. So I'm at a point where this is gonna be my focus from 55 to 60, where I'm just gonna kick ass and open maybe 100 of them in Ontario. And what I did in 28 years of opening 800 pita pits, I can open up 100 of these. And when people used to come to us with Pita Pit, and they'd say, I want a store in San Diego. You're like, yeah, okay, no problem. Bellingham, Washington. You get the old days. You had to get a map out. Okay. Oh, there it is, right by Seattle. Okay, got it. You fly to Seattle and go up to Bellingham, and so we were on the road for 7 years. We opened up 210 restaurants in 7 years, John and I, and just driving around without a cell phone, and just you call a guy and say, okay, I'll meet you at the Tim Hortons in Barrie on Dunlop, and you're like, hope this guy shows up. And you're driving from Oshawa to meet a guy, and so it was. Nowadays, I'll be there in 7 minutes. You just on GPS, and it's a very different time developing a brand. So back to your point, what you just said, you have no kids, no wife, nothing holding you back. So what's holding you back? Yeah. Do something you love. And if you do, you'll do great, brother, or whatever you decide to do, James. So that's kind of what we did with Pita Pit. We just focused on our journey didn't worry about what Bubba's was doing or Lino's or Zamaster or any of these guys, you know, and make sure that you have a good product. You gotta ship product. If your beer's terrible, they're not gonna drink the second one. They'll be like, I own a brewery as well called Lightcaster. If you drink that beer and you go, yeah, thanks, Nels, but they just like pour it out when I'm gone. I got a great brewmaster. He's been in the industry. He's an award-winning guy. He's been 15 years, 35 years old. And those guys, they had like half a beard, you know. I went to the Halifax. I went to the Halifax Beer Awards, and I said, do I need to wear like a suit or, you know, throw some dress pants on? He goes, dude, jeans, tennis shoes, and like the worst T-shirt you have, you know. And then so I tried to grow a little bit of a beard too, so I could fit in a bit, but it wasn't quick enough. But these guys have those, you know, those beards, and they talk about beer and they're passionate about it. And the craft beer industry is 10% now, and it's growing. Yeah. So the big boys need to, you know, think about like this isn't it. And what they do is that whenever a brewery does well, they just buy them anyway. So it's like maybe get to that point where we can grow our brewery to a size that maybe Labatt's or Molson or Anheuser-Busch wants us, and that's probably the end game. You know, that's my exit strategy. Yeah. Or if it's doing well, I'll just, you know, sit back on the board and let the younger partners, because I have myself at 55, I got Braden at 45, I got Jim at 35, and I got Jake at 27. So we have kind of every decade kind of covered, and these guys are all studs. They're hardworking dudes that are laser focused on growing this brewery, right? So,
do you think you'll always kind of have skin in the game? Because I feel like that's kind of how you've.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think when you stop doing that, you get old.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the guys that whine about it, oh, it's tough. It's tough to work 40 hours a week. It's like they're already missing it, man. You know, we knew back in 1995 that we were going to do great things with Pita Pit, just not how great, you know. But when a guy says, I have a check for you in Tokyo for $250,000 for the rights, it's like you get on the flight the next morning. You fly to Tokyo and sell that country. And I missed a lot of things. I missed the birth of my oldest daughter. I was in Halifax doing an opening, and she doesn't let me live that down. I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia when my daughter Ryan was being born, and then I was in Tennessee when Paige was born. So you have to have a lot of support at home as well. And I want to give her credit for, you know, you don't think of it, you say, well, I. Probably one of my favorite books I read was Dave Thomas's from Wendy's, because you read like Ray Kroc's book from McDonald's, it's all about I did this and I did that. And even the founder, it was all about Ray Kroc. Howard Schultz, what's his one called? Onward. You know, it's a lot about Howard Schultz. Well Done is all about Dave Thomas talking about all the people around him that helped him. And it's well done, you know. And I kind of like when Lucas was writing that book about Pita Pit with me for a year and a half. It was about interview Peter Panopoulos, interview Jack Riggs, interview, you know, John Stiriad, interview all these people so you get a true perspective of what Pita Pit was and where the company really started, right? So her parents, she said to me, she goes, you know my parents. And I said, how do I know your parents? You know, she's a 35-year-old woman. She goes, you were their paper boy when you were 6 years old in Oshawa. So I was the youngest paper boy ever in Oshawa because I was 6 years old. I couldn't even add. But my brother was 11, so he could help me collect and pay for it. It was Oshawa this week, so I was like 1975, I was delivering papers. They lived on Cadillac Avenue about 6 doors down from me, and they remembered me as a little kid. And so, you know, my dad always, you know, grew up in old German and Scottish family. It's like, you wanted a bike, you had a newspaper, get your bike. My first job was at 13, like a real job, was McDonald's in 1982 and Mother's Pizzeria. And I like pizza better, so I went the pizza route instead of McDonald's. But growing up in Oshawa, if you wanted anything, like in September, you got a new pair of jeans and a new shirt. Anything else you want, you just paid for it. Yeah. And times are different. I've never had a boss since I was 20 years old. You know, I had my own pizza restaurant at 21 years old. Never answered to anybody. Yeah. I've always been the founder of the company, so I believe answering is a good thing. I answer to my customers. You know, if they're upset with me, then they're my boss. So.
Guys, I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
But I want to end
I hope this is what you were looking for,
This is exactly what I've been looking for now.
Okay.
So we kept it super casual.
Try to keep it real.
I love that you guys joined in. This is great.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
James Moffat experience.
Kind of a loaded question, but I like to ask my guests at the very end, what has been your biggest takeaways just founding a company from a young age and building it to where it is now, everything you've learned up until now, are there any like last couple takeaways you can leave with us?
Well, I have some regrets, I've lost a lot of friends and families that it's again a double-edged sword. If you don't let them in, they hate you. If you let them in, they hate you because they weren't the right people. And
let them into the business, like buy it.
In the business, and I think that was a regret because I don't know how to handle that differently. Whether it's your brother or friends that have known for a long time that want to get involved with Pita Pit, and I really. You hope for the best, but so that was a regret. So I don't know how to change that for a younger guy. Nepotism has been one of the big. That is my biggest weakness as a founder of a company, that I didn't stand up for saying absolutely not. Don't let these people take charge. I was telling these guys like 90% of the businesses here in Canada are family owned. And if you pass it on to the next generation, it's about 30%. So the failure rate is massive. And so it's like hire the right people. Hey James, if you're going to open up a company, make sure you're putting the right people on the right seat of the bus. And if you do that, you have a better chance of success in a very competitive world. And like you said, I don't know how to find out what your passion is and your direction is. That's your own journey. I knew what I had to do with my own limited skills and ability, but I always surrounded myself with people that were just as. I don't fear intelligence. I embrace it, and I think that's a crucial one too, because people, they always say A's hire A's, B's hire C's. And so they want people beneath them that they can tell what to do. And I think I prefer someone to say, no, you're wrong. And if you talk to Marina and a lot of the people that have told me I've been wrong many times, I love it. I embrace that. And I think that's why the success of Pita Pit. And surround yourself with culture and build that culture. Learn about your team. Like we knew personally, like if somebody's dog passed away or, a mother that's sick, reach out to them. Like, it don't have to be that cold and calculated. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And that was always my journey. Was just have fun. It's one of my missions for sure. Changing people's lives on both sides of the counter, one pita at a time, was our mission. And I believe that for the guy that comes in that wants to lose a few pounds, or the guy that maybe has grease all over his fingers because he's been under a car for the last year as a mechanic, now owns his own business. So that was our mission. And if you have that vision and focus, you'll do great at whatever you want to do. And surround yourself with good people.
Yeah. Well, at Queens we got some pretty good people around us. But
oh yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I can find something that, like you said, doesn't feel like working when as a career path, and I hope we all get to.
I'd probably travel for about 2 years if I were you before.
I'd love to do that. Unfortunately, I gotta work.
I mean, who wants the money? No one's for the money.
Well, you can work at pita pits all over the world. New Zealand would love to have you over there. Just sling some pitas and just travel for a few months. But your dad's gonna call me up tomorrow and say, "What the hell you tell my son?" So no. Anyway, no. Enjoy life, man.
That's good advice. Anyways, Nelson, Lucas, you guys for joining. Thank you so much for coming in from Oshawa today.
Pleasure. Thank you to the brass.
You trucked in, Thank you to
Pierce. Hey,
Pierce.
we got to thank Pierce for the first pitcher of beer. Thanks, Pierce.
Well, thank you, Pierce. 90%. The 10% can be earned when you carry his beer.
Yeah. Come on, Pierce. Talk to Scott about that. They won't carry my beer. Anyway, I still love these guys. So.
Awesome. Well, we're so lucky to hear from you today. And thank you for all the advice, and hope it helps some people listening.
Yeah, for sure.